In this video, we're going to have a quick look at NURBS-based objects and the differences that they have between polygonal and subdivision surface models. So let's start here by looking at these three spheres, which are a polygon sphere on the left, a NURBS sphere in the middle, and a subdivision surface sphere on the right. So the big difference here, you can quickly see a difference between the NURBS and the polygonal structure, and that's that the polygonal structure is very dense and the NURBS one is much more sparse. Now I can go and actually make this even less sparse, so I could turn down my numbers here. Let's go to 4 and we'll do it 4 and 4. So you can see I can make that even less dense, but it doesn't lose the smooth structure. I can change this back up to 8, 9, 10. And all these different sections in these spans are giving us more control over the shape of the actual NURBS surface. Now, the difference between the sub-D one and the NURBS one is a little less obvious actually at first, especially in the fact that I could build a polygonal structure that looks a lot like this NURBS one and then convert it to subdivision surfaces. But the big difference is in how these objects control. So a NURBS object is based off of a different set of options. See, with the sub-Ds and with the polygons, we're dealing with edges, vertices, and faces. And those faces or those polygons with the sub-D object are just taken and smoothed and refined, broken down from quads into 4 quads, and those quads into 4 more quads, etc., to give you a smooth shape. With the polygon, you actually have to create all of the polygons in order to get that smooth shape. So there's a big difference there. The NURBS have a completely different set of controls. We're dealing with control vertices, isoparms, and a hole. So if we look at each of these, a control vertex, you can see that these are actually just floating out in space. So if I select one of these and move it, you can see that I'm moving one little piece, but I am controlling an entire section of the surface. So in this way, it's much like editing a subdivision surface mesh. Now, if I go in here and let's check isoparms, now these are going to be the actual individual edge loops. Now, these aren't as openly editable as an edge in, say, a polygon-based structure or in a subdivision surface structure. And then the last one that we have is a hole. And this is going to appear much like a cage around a subdivision surface object, where we have kind of this outlying group that can be edited, and while you're editing this low poly cage or this hole, the smoothed NURBS model underneath is what is actually taking the change to the curve. So these are always going to render smooth. You can control the amount of smoothness that you render them with, but for many areas it's going to be good use for control of objects that don't have as much detail or where the detail is very smooth and fluid. So some things are going to be much easier to create with NURBS, whereas some other things are going to be much more difficult to create with NURBS, and you'll want to go with something like polygons or subdivision surfaces. So that's the quick high-level overview of NURBS as they compare to subdivision surface and polygonal structures.